an elephant in every classroom in the UK, and we all know that we struggle to get teachers into our classrooms, and once they're there, we're struggling to keep them. And I have first-hand experience of that as a leader in a school where I once was flicking through 12, 15 different applications for a single post. I'm now struggling to get one applicant after advertising 2 or 3 times. We also have a problem with the way in which head teachers and schools are held accountable, and the way individual teachers are judged on their performance. It's really sad for me to see great teachers leaving the profession because they're made to feel like good just isn't good enough. I'll forgive you for thinking I'm here to moan. I'm not. I'm here to tell you that we, and by that I mean myself and all my colleagues, the teaching profession, we're aware of these problems. We don't need outside agencies to tell us that they exist. We're living them every day. And we want to address them. We want to solve them. But we need your help. We need everybody's help. One of the problems we have, one of the problems we face, is the fact that everybody has an opinion. Everybody has an experience of education, and everybody has been a student at some point or another. And good or bad, your experiences are colouring the way you see us as a profession. We need you to realise that. We need you to recognise the fact that your perception of us might be part of the problem. The media doesn't help us. Education is frequently in the news and often is negatively portrayed. Whether it be an expose on head teachers' salaries or a criticism of an individual school's choice of lunchtime arrangements. We're frequently in the spotlight. I must have been teaching 2 or 3 years when I got a call from my mum one night. And we'd been on strike that day. And she'd gone home and watched the news. And the reporters were out in Newcastle city centre, and they were interviewing the public. And they were asking the public, do you think that teachers deserve this day off? They were also asking the public, do you know how much an average teacher earns? And this is why my mum called me. She was outraged, because the figure that they were quoting was, in her words, ridiculous. Clearly taken into account all the southern weighting and all the head teachers' salaries. There's no way the average teacher in Newcastle's earning that amount. And of course she was right, and she saw through that hype. We need you to do the same. We need people to question what they're being told by the media, and we need you to help us paint a more positive picture of education, because ultimately we need more people joining our ranks. There's been a whole shift in the way teacher training is happening, and more of it's been placed on schools. And initially, we were fairly cynical of that. I certainly saw it as another way for the government to add something to our already laden shoulders. But we're embracing it, because do you know what? We can do it. We can do it really well, actually. And that's not to say that my own university training wasn't good. It was fantastic. I got a brilliant grounding in educational theory. I learnt lots about psychology and pedagogy. But there's certain things that the university training couldn't provide me with. And ultimately, because I was based at a university, I always felt like a visitor in the school. And I always, no matter how welcoming the departments were, I never quite felt like I belonged there. And there was limits to what the university tutors could give us. They, unfortunately, couldn't prepare me for the boy, Josh, in my first year of teaching, who, without fail, got into the cupboard. And you know what? I've looked for this chapter. There is no Bill Rogers chapter on how to coax him back out again. They didn't provide me, or they weren't there, to be fair. They weren't there at 7 o'clock in the evening when I was crying with frustration when Brooke had once again derailed my lesson, the clever and articulate boy who was devious and try as I might to blame him, I couldn't, because I knew his really troubled background, and I knew that a couple of months earlier, he had been the person to find his mother when she'd taken her own life. My university tutors were fantastic in terms of encouraging me to try new things. I'll never forget the first time I tried a circus of activities. And what they didn't do, though, what they couldn't tell me, is the logistics of how to make that work with my bottom set on a Tuesday afternoon after they've just returned from a football match they'd lost and 2 of my class had had a fight on the pitch. That day, it was the teachers that were picking up the pieces when that activity lived up to the name circus. And that's the point. The teachers could help me because the teachers knew what worked in that school and they knew what worked with their children. And so they could provide me with that advice, the practical advice to help me. And that's why we can make it work. That's why we, as a profession, can do teacher training. We can make a system that actually trains these teachers, not just to survive, but to flourish. We can train the next generation of teachers. We can inspire the next generation of teachers because we know what they need. And we can design bespoke training programs for our schools. But we still need your help because we need them through the doors. If you can get them to us, we can then do the rest. Becoming a teacher is an awfully long journey. And it's full of incremental gains and frequent setbacks, and we work really, really hard to deal with failure. A couple of months ago, I was teaching my GCSE science class, and the topic was displacement. And I, without thinking, fell into this analogy that I'd been taught as a child. And it was the story of the gorgeous girl on the beach. And she's walking along with her boyfriend, who she is snatched away from as soon as the gorgeous tanned Adonis comes on by, and he's discarded. And I was halfway through that analogy when I realized what I was saying. I was propagating the idea that women are objects. I was also suggesting that ultimately we're all incredibly superficial, and the only thing that's holding our relationships together is the idea that something better hasn't really come along just yet. And all of that flooded out of my mouth, much to the amusement of my class. They definitely will not remember that lesson as the day they learned about the nuances of displacement reactions. But I'll remember it, because I'll learn from it. And the important part is that actually in excess of 10,000 lessons, I actually did the calculation, that I've taught to date, I refuse to be defined by that one, because that's not who I am as a teacher. I will remember it and I will learn from it. Teachers, all of us, aren't perfect. Your teachers won't have been perfect and your children's teachers won't be perfect. But I've yet to meet a teacher who doesn't want to improve. And sometimes it feels like everything's against us. There's a lot of pressure on us to be put to perform. And a lot of it comes from ourselves. So please, don't feed into that. Don't imply that you don't believe that we aren't motivated and passionate and keen to improve by flippantly joking about the long summer holidays or the 3:30 finish. There's an elephant in this room, and we want to eat it. But there's only one way to eat an elephant, and the only way we can is if we all take a small bite. And if we all take a small bite, we can devour it. But we need your help. Thank you.